Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and this is another podcast where I drive to work called Chatting in Cars. It's Monday once again. I've got 2 more weeks of work and then I can have 2 weeks off, so I'm going to be super stoked when that happens. As a disclaimer at the start of this podcast, because I do swear profusely and I do go on rants because I'm old and crotchety. Nothing to do with crutches. There's also a disclaimer because I talk about sensitive topics. And they often do spread into different types of topics. There's never one topic I stick to. I do tend to spread them out and talk about many things because of that networking brain of mine. Network thinking. I'm going to apologise slightly now. My flu is nearly gone, which I think is pretty cool. So I might be coughing and I might not be. It seems to be stuck in my nose right now. I don't know what that was. I've never had COVID, so... I know what that was. It felt like the symptoms they described to be COVID. Oh well, thank God it's gone now. So, my topic, or our topic I should say, because I'm talking to you, for today is internal validation. I'm not going to go into external validation today because that's a different podcast and it's going to be a lengthy one at that because I'll probably rant about a shitload of other things. Internal validation is looking to find some kind of meaning and value in whatever you do from an intrinsic internal standpoint. Something that is worthy or fulfilling for you rather than, trying to find something that would make someone else happy. Unfortunately, I grew up in the kind of household where I was conditioned to be a people pleaser. So... when it comes to, finding internal validation, I actually found it a challenge because my parents weren't, the kind that wanted me to have some kind of self-worth. Because if you had a sense of self-worth, then you might, rail up against whatever they want you to do. They were very controlling parents. I don't know if you've listened to the other podcasts, but you'll know what kind of people I was raised by. It was very much emphasis on servitude, putting yourself last. Hence the reason I became a people pleaser. Sorry, my stutter's already kicking in. And my needs and desires and wants were usually pushed to the background in order to give them what they wanted, which was essentially servants. I don't know if anyone else has grown up in those kind of circumstances. They also systematically attack your self-esteem. Hoping to keep you in a sense of a controlled state. Then they also push this sort of, you have to stay loyal to the family, which is not going to happen, especially if you're sitting there bullying your own kids. So, you're just asking for insurgency that way. But, I moved out of home at 19 with my now ex-husband. And that sort of led on to, again, me people pleasing to keep the relationship going. And then I married him at 27, divorced him at 33. So, it was a long relationship. My parents kind of set me up for a fall there because I had no sense of what I actually wanted in life. I was too preconcerned with trying to make someone else happy, or at first it was my parents I wanted to make happy because, any kind of affection, breadcrumbed or otherwise, was great as a kid, right? Sorry, still coughing. It's only a dry cough. But, after that came my husband, or my ex-husband, and he wanted me to just do exactly what I was doing for my parents, but for him. And there were conflicts that arose between him and my parents because he wanted me to follow him, and they were like, this is our kid, no, sort of thing. So I was caught in the middle between these 2 arseholes, or 3 arseholes, I should say. He didn't like my parents. He especially didn't like my mum because, he's sort of presented her as a bitch and was pretty accurate. But I don't think he realised just how much of an arsehole he was being himself in the same kinds of ways. So, it's a bit hypocritical, really. But it was a battle of the wits between those two. He didn't like it when I used to come back from staying at my mum's house because I used to go over the weekend to go work on their farm. I used to come back and he used to, because I'd be, talking back or whatever, And he didn't like that because it didn't suit his needs and whatever he wanted me to do. Yeah, he was a bit of a douche. But it wasn't until I broke out of that marriage that I started questioning what I actually wanted in life. There were snippets of me trying to find things I wanted to do. Like, I would take myself on holidays when I was married. He used to love it because he got the house to himself. God knows what he used to do while I was gone. I mean, bearing in mind, he only just came clean about being non-monogamous in the last year or so of, the marriage. I can imagine what he was doing while I was gone. I'm sure he loved it when I went away. Especially when it went down to the farm for the weekend, every other weekend. I can imagine. Anyway, I don't think I'll ever forgive him for that. I really don't. Because the more I think about it now, the more shit comes to mind where I think, yeah, he probably was fucking around, actually. Anyway. So he's fucked. So, when you find your sense of self, it's you feel selfish. And currently this thing that's going around is people finding their villain era. I do find that I'm finding my villain era at this point because I'm not a doormat anymore, and I stand up for myself. And I feel bad for doing it, and I do come across as nasty at sometimes. I know the last podcast I did, thinking back on it, I never actually just listened back on it because I don't ever listen back on my podcasts because it's just me getting shit out and then driving on. But thinking back on some of the things I was saying, I'm going, I probably sound like a real asshole. But again, is that me being observant or like honest about my feelings and thoughts with no filter, or is that genuinely me being, is that me being an asshole? I know I have no tact at times because I just want to say things as they are. I'm tired of, I've spent the last God knows how many years sugarcoating shit for idiots, basically. And when it comes to it, I just want to say it as it is because I'm tired of the sugarcoating shit. I don't like when people sugarcoat shit for me. Bugs the fuck out of me. I feel like you're lying to me. So why did you need to say it that way? Why don't you just say it as it is? And then, it sounds like they're conniving stuff out of you. I remember sitting down for one of my pracs when I was doing teaching, way back when, because our pracs are like an internship. You have to sit there and do the physical side of teaching as a lesson sort of thing. Apprenticeship. And my teacher that I was with clearly didn't like me. I was giving her the shit somehow, and bearing in mind I was only in my early 20s, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I was pissing her off. Luckily it was only like a 2-week stint thing. But we sat down as a meeting because she called my supervisor in because she wasn't happy with what I was doing. I'm going, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. What do you want me to do? But they sugarcoated so much shit because she didn't want to seem unprofessional. Bearing in mind she had some kind of pissed off grudge about what I was doing. I don't know what I was doing still to this day. I just don't think she liked me. But oh well. You're never going to get along with everyone. That's the thing. It's like we want to get along with everyone. You're never going to get. It's never going to happen. People just clash personality-wise, energy-wise. Fuck it. You just step over it and keep going. Don't take it personally. Some people are just assholes. She was, because she made my prac very uncomfortable. Luckily, I got the chance to make her son's prac very fucking uncomfortable too. So I was a bit of an asshole there. Yeah, but he was pulling shit too, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. If you're going to hold me to a standard, I'm going to hold you to a standard and your son. So, I'm mean, but maybe he was doing what I was doing that was pissing her off. I don't know. Possibly. But she had sugarcoated all this shit, and she got my supervisor in to put the shits up me, and I'm like, why couldn't you just tell me this to my face, cut the crap and say what's the problem? And we sat down at this round table, and she didn't actually specify what the fuck was the problem. Everything was still sugarcoated, and I said at one point, look, just tell me what's the problem. Tell me straight, don't sugarcoat it. I need to know what to change so I can adapt and keep going. And then she gave me the funniest look, and I'm sitting there going, what is this forced formality when nothing gets done because everybody's standing on ceremony? That just pisses me off. It's like we're not going to get anything done because everybody's worried about being too fucking polite. That's the problem. It's like, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. What, by telling the truth? What? Tell the fucking truth. That bugs me. I mean, it also just lends itself to conniving. You know, it's like two-facedness is like people who will sit there and pretend to be your friend to your face and then backstab you in the back. That annoys the fuck out of me too. It's like, if you didn't like me, just tell me. I don't give a fuck. Your shit does not affect my shit. I will just avoid you, and that way we could both be happy. It doesn't make sense. But it's that people-pleasing as well. I don't know if they're doing it because they're people-pleasers or because they genuinely are cowards and they don't want to tell the truth. Bearing in mind, my people-pleasing came from like violence. It wasn't a case of, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Like, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. So I have a background in, you know, a negative reinforcement, I should say, when it comes to people-pleasing. It would have been nice to have taken the polite route, where everybody just wants to get along. But mine was mainly physical conditioning, pain avoidance. You were going to do the right thing, otherwise you're going to get hurt. And you learn pretty quick that you do the right thing, or you do whatever they deem as the right thing. Otherwise, you're going to get, you know, essentially assaulted. I mean, if this was two adults in public, it would be assault. What my parents did to me, I don't understand why it was okay for an adult to hit me. I mean, bearing in mind, parents are like double your size, height, and width, and they're coming at you like a fucking thunderbolt, you know. Just beat the shit out of you, and then it's okay because it's parenting. It's not fucking okay. Can you imagine if you're an adult and someone literally double your size, double your width, double your girth comes at you and just starts smacking you around? That's assault, right? I'm pretty sure that's assault. My parents were like, no, we're correcting behavior. It's like, what? I find that weird. It's probably not allowed. Anyway, things we've normalized. It's just parenting. This child needs a smack. It's like, no, that's a beating. Not even a smack, you know, at this point. But it's sort of glossed over because it's a kid. I mean, then as a teacher, you learn the rights of the child as well. So, you know, basic human respect, the rights of the child and things like that. So you start questioning what the fuck happened to you as a kid. There's a whole big story there. Anyway, so internal validation. Now, most of my life has been external validation, and I will do a podcast on that because it's not been a case of I want popularity and shit like that. It's more of a case of I just want someone to see me to validate that I have any kind of worth at all. I had low self-esteem a lot, and that was preconditioned by my parents. They wanted us to have low self-esteem so we were compliant to whatever they wanted us to do. My dad was the one for psychological abuse. I remember him sitting down at my kitchen table with my sister. My sister's not mathematically minded, my older one. In fact, she was a bit of an airhead growing up, but there was a lot of psych issues going around our family, so ones that my parents had cultivated, to be honest. She was, of the three girls, she started off as the softest. She was the ballerina, the delicate one. So my dad was sitting there teaching her maths at the kitchen table, and he's a berserker. And she wasn't getting what he was putting down, and he just unloaded. And it was a case of, you know, screaming at her, you're fucking stupid, you're fucking dumb, why aren't you getting this, what the fuck is wrong with you, sort of shit. And she wondered why, we all had low self-esteem. I recognized that kind of shit, just never to ask my dad for help. I was the smart one. I was like, no, I'll do it myself. But it was a case of my dad didn't want to be a parent. He liked the idea of it. And when he was put to practice, he just didn't want to be the parent. Now, the parent needs patience for guidance of children. Even I know that as a teacher. I'm not a parent. But I can parent. I know that because I've been trained to parent. It takes a hell of a lot of patience not to bring your parents' trauma back into that kind of scenario. Dealing with the frustration of the day, And the fact that you've got like 30 kids to one teacher and you're trying not to unload on these fuckers. It takes a hell of a lot of patience. But the fact that he couldn't handle one kid spoke volumes. So my sister now, we all have eating disorders besides the fact. It's like most of us are overeating. I was undereating. I think that's got something to do with the fact that there's, you know, general anxiety and shit like that my parents encouraged. They fed into. Because if you keep your kids on your toes, you can, you know, divide and conquer and keep them, you know, under thumb. Which is why they currently they do that with money now. If any of us needs money, I asked my parents for money at one point. I gave up trying, because they will give it to some, like they'll give it to my older brother, they'll give it to my younger sister, they would give it to my older sister or I. Now what they're doing there is divide and conquer. They're trying to keep us under control by stopping us, you know, collaborating together against them, siding together. But bearing in mind we've had how many years of it being a case of the kids against them. So it's a weird dynamic. Ooh, nice bike. What was that? I want one of them. That was nice. Sorry. They look like old school, like, Vietnam bikes, you know? Like the old, sorry, I'm going on a tangent. Anyway, I like motorbikes. But, yeah, you know, it's fucking stupid. Any kind of validation that I have developed since has been a case of just ignoring my parents and then leaving my ex-husband and trying to find my own worth after that. Now, I managed to pick that up quite well, and I did that because I was angry. I picked up my self-esteem. I owe my ex-husband somewhat of a debt because he was the triggering force, the catalyst for me developing self-esteem. Because he had done something that was so heinous and so painful, so much of a betrayal in what he did and the way we left our marriage, that something snapped, and my brain said, essentially, fuck it. It said, fuck it, I'm doing me now. Because I had 20 years with my parents, and then I had 16 years with this asshole, constantly putting myself last, constantly trying to keep the peace, treading on eggshells, feeding his ego, and then all of a sudden, it still wasn't good enough. And it never was good enough looking back. You look about little things like I wasn't cooking his egg properly, or, you know, I never made him happy because I wasn't wearing the right things, or he didn't like makeup, or he didn't like me dressing like a girl, things like that. It was a constant state of how can I, you know, what is this guy doing? The guy's an asshole. There's a lorry and he's steaming up in the fast lane. I don't know what he's trying to achieve. But he's going to have an accident in a minute. He's got 2 containers on the top. Fucking idiot. Oh look, we all have to sharp brake because you're an idiot. But that's the thing, it's like, no, I never made him happy. I was a mascot to him. I wanted to keep the peace, I wanted the marriage to work, I wanted the relationship to work, but I never actually understood what I wanted out of the relationship. And one time, towards the end, he asked me, what do you love me for? And I sat there and I thought, what do I love you for? And I tried to understand why I was still with this person who treated me like shit, who wasn't faithful, you know, and I got it down to I've got low self-esteem. I got really low self-esteem, and I'm afraid of change. Because exactly like the Landslide song says, I built my life around you, and I don't know what the fuck to do with myself now. You know, I had put so much faith and hope in that this marriage would go somewhere and this life would be something, that I hadn't bothered to reinforce who I was or what I wanted. And I lost myself in the relationship. And I was constantly seeking his validation. To me, he was the utmost. I put him on a pedestal. He was everything for me. I didn't want anyone else. And I still, to this day, when I'm with someone, I don't want anyone else. I don't know if I'm supposed to be that way. I don't know, it's because I'm a diehard romantic. I don't find other people attractive while I'm with someone. They are my utmost. That's the only person I ever want, you know? It's like I'm all in, I'm balls in, right? Some people can sit there and flirt with other people. I don't know how the fuck they do that and not feel like a piece of shit. I don't know how. But anyway, some people can pull it off. I don't know. It's some kind of external validation, self-esteem thing. But to me, you know, being with someone is putting yourself last. But at the same time, you need them to do the same. So it's even, right? If you're both putting yourself last, then the other person's back is covered, right? But the fact was, he wasn't putting himself last. He was saying shit like, I would ask him to meet up for coffee or something like that, and he'd say, I'll pencil you in. I'm going, I've been your wife for this long. You don't pencil your wife in, dude. You make her a priority. Same as I've always made you a priority. It doesn't make sense to put me last because I'm, you know, I might be boring you. It was just him. He was always first. I mean, I might have created this monster, to be honest, because I did always put him first. And when you start feeding these monsters, they start believing their own shit. So they believe that they should be first, which is terrible because you just want them to be nice in the first place. You wanted them to feel good about it. Because when I first met him, he was just like this really quiet guy. He was quiet and he was tall, and I found him attractive. And I was 17, and I'm like, he's so nice, he's so quiet. But then, you know, and we had that middle bit, you know, of the relationship where everything was cool and we were friends and we got along really easily and stuff like that. But towards the end, last 5 years, he got really fucking arrogant and really up his own ass. And then finally, this ultimatum, I need an open marriage or otherwise I'm leaving. I'm sitting there thinking, I've had you for 16 years of my life. That's half my life. And you're pulling this shit. I can't forgive him for that. He threw away everything. Because he wanted to get his dick wet. It doesn't make sense. But then looking again back at his backtrack of his record, he's quit everything he's ever touched. So it was no surprise that he would quit this. It shouldn't have been a surprise. It was like, to be honest, I was the fucking glue holding us together because I constantly backtracked on whatever I wanted or needed, my needs, to keep him pushing forward. You ever watch that movie, The First Wives Club? I wish he had some money so I could exploit him for it. You know, First Wives Clubs, they had built their lives around these guys, and then the guys had either left him for their psych or some 20-year-old bint, or, you know, I'm trying to think what else. It was always someone younger and you know, some 12-year-old twink. But they went back and they, you know, essentially just crushed them financially. So I wish he had money. I could do the same. But that movie was paramount when I was in my separation year, because I just needed something to show me that I was still worth something. So I love that movie. It's weird little things like that. I mean, it's a very old movie. I think it's from 1995 actually. It's got Bette Midler and not Whoopi Goldberg, Goldie Hawn. You know, I don't like Diane Keaton. But anyway, I ramble. But in stepping into my villain era, this is, you know, post-divorce. I'm aged, like 30, 33, 34 now? Well, not now, but this was 4 years ago. I started looking at things that I wanted, internally validating myself. I started spoiling myself. All the money I was spending on him and his trips and whatever he wanted, keeping the house running, bills paid, things like that, I started turning it on myself. I went out and I bought myself a shit ton of jewelry, and I bought dresses and I wore makeup. I wore bright red lipstick for like a month after I left him because he would never let me wear lipstick. He said I looked like a hoe. All these things that I was never allowed to do, I wanted to try because, you know, I never got a chance to when I was with him because he didn't like it. It was brilliant. I used to make my own dresses when I was with him, but he never really appreciated and things like that. He didn't want me to have self-esteem because it meant that I wouldn't do what he wanted me to do. I think he also wanted me to dress like a boy because it would actually detract, attention from other men, They would look at me like I was dumpy. And that way the competition wouldn't be there and he could keep this person at the home. It was a case of keeping someone at home and one in the streets, I think, honestly. He wanted someone at home to manage all the house and shit and keep his life running so that he could go out and do what he wanted to do with other girls. Or boys. I still think he was gay. Or bisexual. Or something. I'm bisexual. I got no problem if he'd been honest, but at the same time, it's like that underhandedly covert bullshit where you just can't tell the truth or do the right thing. That shits me off. But I started doing what I wanted to do and handling my business how I wanted to handle it. I started fighting for my own independence because I'd spent my life putting, my entire existence into the hands of someone else just to keep them happy. I was of service, to be honest. And I completely threw myself away trying to make them happy. And it was stupid. I had no sense of identity when I left, which is a good thing, though, because I could build from scratch. I looked at all the things, and I experimented for like that first year of separation because I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. So I experimented with all, outfits and trying new things and going places because I wanted to see what I was actually interested in, rather than what my ex-husband told me I'd been interested in. Like, he wanted to go and do things like fucking roller coasters and shit. I hate roller coasters. I like museums and art galleries. I remember on our honeymoon, we went to Sentosa, which is in Singapore, which is an entire island just dedicated to fucking roller coasters and shit. And I didn't like it that much. I liked, going to like the botanical parks and things like that. But because he had said, we're doing this. And he put me on roller coasters and I shat myself because I got PTS. Well, I didn't literally shit myself, but, it wasn't a pleasant experience. And, he just didn't take anything of my history or who I am into consideration at any point because he didn't want to accept that, he wouldn't get his way. So I'm sitting here near enough having a heart attack on this fucking roller coaster and he's finding it funny. He's laughing his ass off. Didn't actually show any consideration for me. He just thought, oh, that's cute. She's crying because she got off this traumatic experience. Complete selfish asshole. And then we went on another one and it's like, you're not seeing the problem here because you're only seeing you. So there was just little snippets that I remember from experiences with him where he's just like, he just don't take anything into consideration. It was always about him. I remember on one of the trips we went back to the UK and I took him and I had organised everything, all the hotels were booked, everything like that, because I'm that kind of person minded. I like projects, I like organising shit. And he complained the whole fucking time, essentially. I had pre-booked, pre-planned everything. All he had to do was drive. And even then, I was doing the tom-tom and he complained about that. He just looking for arguments. Nothing I ever did was good enough. So I was not going to get any kind of external validation unless it was breadcrumbed. And whatever external validation I got from him was usually some kind of infantile jest, where it was patronizing as well. It's like he didn't want me to achieve anything. He wanted to put me in this position of this 16-year-old, 17-year-old girl still, even though at the time I'm like 30-odd, because it made him feel good. He was the grown-up. He was the one in control. He was the leader. He was not a leader. He was an asshole. He didn't take into consideration his people. So the way I found validation after I left him was becoming the leader I wanted to be, and making sure that making sure that I actually did things that I found valuable to me. I went away on at least 1-2 trips straight after I left him because I had to understand what I wanted and what I wanted to do, what my interests were. And I went back to the UK and I toured on my own. I suggest that for any person who's been in that kind of codependent relationship, to just get out and do something on your own. Even a big thing like taking a trip, pre-organizing everything and just going for 5 weeks if you can afford it, obviously. We are in an economic crisis. Not everyone can just flee to a different country on holiday. And to be honest, I put myself in debt doing that, so I wouldn't suggest doing that. But at the time I wasn't mentally stable, and I wasn't feeling very responsible. Everything was just dropping. So I'm like, fuck it. Drop further. We'll pick up the pieces afterwards. Not very responsible, but for the first time in my life I wasn't going to be responsible. I wanted to go and see and do what I wanted to do. So I did. I went back to the UK for 5 weeks. I think it was in July. And then in October I went over to Sydney to do Invictus, which is a Prince Harry thing. When he was responsible. He's not anymore. But that's all like a soldiers' Olympic Games sort of thing going on. And I just drove around Sydney and I had a look at Sydney and the botanical gardens and all the museums, and I went on tours and things like that, just to get my mind straight, just to show myself that I could do these things, that I didn't need someone to validate me, to give me some kind of sense of worth. And it was great, because I didn't have to worry about someone whinging in the passenger seat telling me that I'm doing it wrong, or having to incorporate whatever they wanted to do in my holiday. Things I didn't want to do in the first place, you know. It was very soul rebuilding, and I picked up my self-esteem, and I got myself out of debt. I did. It took a while, it took 2 years, but I got myself out of debt. And I just separated myself, and I started living on my own and building my own independence again, because it was a case of I always had the skills. To be honest, I was carrying two of us. And you'll find that once you start looking for that internal healing, and you separate yourself from the person who's just taking from you, you'll find that you've actually been carrying a hell of a lot more weight than you realize. And once the void is cut off, the overflow that comes with it, you'll find that you have more money, more energy, more time. Most of my time when I was married was spent, you know, looking after him, cleaning up after him, paying for him, constantly making him feel alright, making sure he was okay, his self-esteem was up and running, you know, getting his shit done in first thing in the morning so he could go to his shitty ass work. He did boot camps, fuck all pay, and I was getting his shit prepped so he could just go in the mornings before I even started prepping mine. When I left, I found I had a shitload of time and space and money, and I just went, fuck it, I'm buying myself presents now. I've done the brave thing. I've left this toxic environment. I'm going to start giving myself the love that I gave him, and it's wonderful. And my self-esteem quickly improved. I proved to myself that I don't need someone else. That in fact, these people that turn up, you know, supposedly loving us, not necessarily love us. Sometimes they just love what we can give them. And I found that with the boyfriend that came after him. So he didn't actually love me, he just loved what I could give him, which was, you know, a fluffy environment, sex and money. I didn't actually give him physical money at any point, although I was buying drinks and things like that, and buying his groceries. And I could see where it was heading, because I had just come out of a marriage, and I'm sitting there thinking, this is going to head straight into another version of this, but unmarried and with no labels, because we don't believe in labels apparently, which is full of shit. I'm sitting there going, I'm doing all the girlfriend things. I don't know why you can't see this as a fucking, you know, he's a douche. Anyway, we're not going into that. But I could see it heading that way, and I'm sitting there going, first of all, you're going to lose your job soon, because your contract's going to run out. You just quit uni and blame me for it. And you said, oh, my emotions and some shit like that. I'm going, no, you can't blame me for your actions. No, you chose to do that, so I'm going to get the shit for that. So there's that lack of, you know, blaming someone else for his actions. My ex-husband used to do that. It was constant arguments and putting me down. nasty comments and things like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is just like being with my ex-husband again. And it made a really easy decision, knowing that I had the experience of leaving my ex-husband and the reasons why, to leave him. I'm sitting there going, I'm not reliving the last 16 years with a different douchebag. I'm not doing this. The straw that broke the camel's back was finding that hair clip. Luckily, that was my exit. That was the universe intervening and saying, he is doing exactly what your ex-husband is doing. Here's evidence. And me turning around going, I can't gloss over this. This is 3D evidence to suggest that this is a fucked up exploitative relationship. This is not just a case of, oh, he's got baggage. You are actively being a cunt. so that was my key out of there. And I grabbed my shit and I bounced. I could have taken him with me. He would have lived in better life circumstances. But the fact that he had done what he'd done, which is unforgivable in my book, it just concreted the whole situation. It's like, I can't trust you. I can't do anything with you now. Bye. And you chose to end it before, that's the thing. It's like people who cheat, they choose to end the relationship before you, the person who gets cheated on, have actually called it. Because they know how you're going to react. That's the reason they hide it. They want to be able to fuck around, and they want to keep you in the house as well. And they will act, they know what's going to happen. They just don't want it to happen yet. They'll lie and hide and omit to keep it staved off as long as possible. But inevitably it will happen. I was angry with him because I had already told him why I left my ex-husband. I had told him how it had affected me. I told him, this is my baggage. This is what I'm walking into this relationship with. I need you to be supportive because I'm trying to rebuild my trust. What he did was he did the exact same fucking thing. He played on my baggage, saying I was being paranoid, whilst doing the exact same fucking thing, hoping for a double bluff. And I'm like, I got physical evidence that you're a piece of shit. Not only do I have physical evidence, you've shown me that you're a double piece of shit for doing the double bluff thing. I was like, I don't know how you could expect me to forgive you for this. And in his arrogance, he's still trying to keep in contact after I left. I'm going, you are up your own ass, man. You are so far up your own self-entitled ass that you think that I would forgive you or want to be around you for this. Knowing that you used my previous shitty marriage against me in order to exploit the situation now. I cannot believe you thought that would work. But, that guy, he's fucking, I don't know, psychotic or something. Something fundamentally fucking wrong with that one. I don't know why he thought that would work. But anyway, that's a long story short. This guy's an idiot. But he was expecting to be able to trauma bond me into staying, which is why he was giving me the horrible comments and why he was, trying to get us girls who were at the bar and the pub to try and play against each other because, if I trauma bond her, she'll try harder to stay with me. And they get scarcity principle, or I'll pretend to be angry, but I'm not really angry. But if you're angry, I'll get my way because you don't want me to be angry. There's all these little tactics these fuck-ups use. But at the same time, I didn't have low self-esteem at the time. I knew I had a good job. I had my own independence. I volunteered to go into that relationship with my eyes open. I didn't trust him. And he tried to tell me off for not trusting me. He was like, why don't you trust me? It's like, he gave me absolutely zero reason to from day one. It's like from day one. And that relationship or situationship happened over nearly 2 years. On and off. I broke up 6 times. So technically it never was a relationship, never got off the ground. And it was all these tactics, these little mind games that he wanted to do to try and break me down, to make me stay, and trauma bonding, all this shit. And I'm sitting there thinking, my self-esteem ain't this low. You've got nothing to offer. I'm doing you a favor by being here in general. You've got fuck all to offer and you're still being a nasty cunt. It's like the audacity. That's my new word lately. It's like the audacity. Yeah, in Rocky terms, you got Mickey. You know Mickey? You remember Rocky? Oh my God, Stallone? I love Mickey. He's Irish. But constantly the things that came to mind is like, you're a bum. And he played on it. He didn't, I don't think he quite understood just how far back from his counterparts he actually was, because he wanted to believe that he was some God's gift to ladies. Because he spent the last 20 years banging hoes. And I'm sitting there thinking, don't be proud of banging hoes. They'll bang anyone, dude. It's like, and then you try to treat me like one. I'm going, dude, no. You're playing checkers when you should be playing chess. You're dumb as shit. But he was hoping that my self-esteem, once I left my marriage, had been that fucking bad that he could play on it. And that I would be grateful for any kind of sexual attention. And to be honest, he wasn't a good lay in the first place. He was violent. But, you know, anyone paying me attention was, you know, and he thought I would run after him. I'm sitting there going, no, my self-esteem is not that bad. I've already healed those wounds where my self-worth wasn't, you know, you just don't have anything to work with here. I went in this willingly, trying to understand what candle I had sort of built for him over the last, 16 years, because I'd held a candle for this guy. And I decided to act on it when I was single, but he fucked it up from day one. I'm sitting there going, darling, it could have been something really, really nice, this relationship. We come from a similar heritage. It could have been something really nice and homely, but you wanted to play games from day one. And it fucked it. Because I didn't have the patience for it. And I didn't have the stupidity to be able to trust someone who was playing these games. And he just had nothing to work with. And so he'd pick fights. And I sat there and I thought, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to spend the next 40 years of my life fighting with someone, fighting for their affection and attention from other, boss gangs. I'm not. It's like, I've got a job, I've got a life, I've got stuff I can be doing. My time is valuable, you are not. It's like, you don't know your place, mate. You've got an overinflated ego and you keep pushing it on other people hoping it sticks. It's just no. You've achieved nothing. It's the same shit as the last podcast, the Show Ponies one. And they go, you've done nothing with your life and expect people to fall at your feet. No. Just because you were, I suppose fortunate enough to hang around with skanks who did the same thing to you. I do wonder if they actually chased him because he was pretty or whatever, or they just chased him because he was an easy lay. It's like, he's not a good one. But at the same time, it's like he was there. And I do remember when we were in uni, because pretty much it was our uni group. All of us have slept with him now, except one person who was Sarah, who fucked off to Germany. But I think it was a case of everyone in our group had gone through him now and left. It's like, yeah. Excuse me. But the face game, like his reputation for having a big cock and a pretty face had entered the room before he had. For some reason, that had been his reputation. Back in uni, and this is when we were in our 20s, this is like 15 years before I even dated him. It was what I had met with as his reputation. It was his calling card. It's like, so all the girls were chasing him because of these two things. I'm sitting there going, does anybody bother to know this arsehole? It's like, I was the last in the group to date him. His ex-girlfriend that was before me was one of my friends when we were back in uni. She was friends with the girl that came before her. So before me, there was a girl called Lisa. Before Lisa, there was a girl called Jess. Before Jess, there was Elise or some shit like that. I don't know. Some girl he picked up from a tavern on campus. I'm sitting there going, you just go from girl to girl to girl, hoping that it sticks. But he systematically treats them like shit every time and they leave. And he's not picking up the pattern. It's like people don't just fall out of love with you because, you know, they just fall out of love. You push them away and you treat them like shit. And then you wonder why they don't stay and want to fight and you know, stay for someone who's generally a nasty person. It's like, people should just accept me as I am. It's like, not like this, dildo. No one's going to accept a dildo. Just no. If they're going to, they're going to pick an actual dildo because they're more cost effective, I guess. I don't know. And less violent. I don't know. That's the thing. It's like these people, they play on your self-esteem, hoping that you're, you know, traumatized enough that you'll stay and won't see that there's any other option for you. You know, I'm an arrogant fuck. In the last couple of years, I've become an arrogant fuck. I know that much. My confidence is basically a half of just tired or age or being fed up with the trauma responses and shit like that. It's rarely that it's something where I was, you know, pumped up from an early age where I think I'm just fabulous. I don't know why they thought they could play me like that. I don't know why. Because I've been through enough shit and I just don't care anymore. So when I find a guy that thinks he's the be-all end-all, he's just an arrogant piece of shit, I tend to just, you know, fuck him off. I don't find it attractive. I think that comes with age as well. You're just less inclined to tolerate shit. It's like, I have no inclination to belong to any kind of a group because no kind of a fucking group ever helps me, to be honest. And I'm more than happy to do my own thing because I know at least my own thing is more reliable than relying on other people. So when I hear stories about girls chasing guys because they think they're the be-all end-all, so I sort of scoff. I'm going, do you actually know this person, or are you just buying into the facade they're selling you to get laid? And that's what at the moment the last social group is probably doing. If he's got that far into the group, I don't know. But it's just stupid. So I'm gonna have to leave it there. But I will say there are dangers to wanting to fit in. Don't let your self-esteem be the cost of trying to fit in with a group. You should always be happy with yourself first. Make sure that whoever you hang out with actually represents the values and, you know, norms that you want to perpetuate. Don't drop standards just to say you belong to a group. Don't drop standards, particularly morality, just to say that you belong with someone. Don't drop it just because you say you love someone. You can love someone from a distance and not risk your health and mental health and things like that. I know my ex-husband, when I left him, he was heading towards drugs and drinking and all that kinds of things. And I'm sitting there going, first of all, you're a personal trainer. Since when do you ever fucking smoke or take drugs? Or it's like, you spent how much on just supplements in the last 10 years? So it was a shock. And he wanted me to do it too. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, I'm not. It's way too late in the game for that shit, for a start. And second of all, it's not part of me. That's not something I would actually do, ever. I'm just not that way inclined. So I found it shocking. So to stay with him, I would have had to drop my standards. So part of me leaving, or the bonus of me leaving, was that I maintained my standards when it came to things like drugs and stuff. I dropped them slightly because I tolerated dating someone who was into drugs and drinking and shit like that. But my standards gone way back up again. I'm not taking that shit. I'm like, no, it's not worth the hassle. Not when I can function on my own quite well and look after myself and maintain, you know, self-esteem and keep myself rolling. So just don't drop standards just to say that you're with someone. It's ridiculous. Find something you're interested in. Hopefully it's a constructive something, even if it's just, you know, whimsical shit like Warhammer stuff like that. Try and find something to, you give yourself a bit of a pep. Don't let someone just walk all over you, and don't let your people pleasing get too much, too controlling. And it's okay to say no. You can actually put boundaries up. I'm in my villain era. Just put it down to that. I said no, so now I'm in my villain era. And it's nice to be the bad guy for once, because it means that I don't have to tolerate people's shit, and I don't have to give things I don't want to give, and I don't want to have to go and do things I don't want to do. It's one of the perks of just saying no. Something that was beaten out of me as a child. I used to say no when I was a toddler, and they beat the shit out of me for it. Now I say it because it's my own sanity. I need to say no. I need to be able to judge the circumstances I'm walking into aren't going to be detrimental to me. So have no shame in that. Just fucking say no if you want. I mean, I'm not saying say no to your boss and get fired. So there's still a risk to reward ratio thing going on there. So calculate the problem that might arise from that. But if someone's asking you to do something like have an open marriage or, you know, go do drugs or some shit like that, you have every right to say no and to tell them to fuck off. You don't have to do that. That's not you, doesn't line up with you, doesn't help me in any way. Fuck them. So, you know, embrace that villainera. I'm just going to head into work now. So I'm hoping... Ooh, okay. I'm hoping you guys have a fantastic day. Sorry, I just got a weird message from work. And I will see you guys on the way back, hopefully.